Welcome to Module 2, The Importance of Indigenous Food Sovereignty. The objectives for Module 2 are as follows. 1. Reflect on what was learned in Module 1 in order to connect it with lessons learned in Module 2. 2. Develop a firm understanding of what social determinants of health are and how they impact our diets and access to healthy and traditional foods. 3. Learn about what food sovereignty is. And 4. See what Indigenous food sovereignty looks like across the United States. Reflections from Module 1. Take a couple of minutes to consider what we learned in our last module and answer the following question. If we as Indigenous people have significantly lost access to our traditional foods, how does that impact our health? Watch this brief video on social determinants of health. Expanding on what the video discussed, things such as historical trauma, boarding schools, and loss of traditional foodways are also considered social determinants of health. For example, someone whose parents went to boarding school likely have a whole series of life experiences that shaped their health and well-being differently compared to someone whose parents who did not. With this perspective of health in mind, think of how many different social determinants of health impact an individual's risk of developing diabetes. Fortunately, our foodways are not completely gone. In fact, there are many people working to reincorporate traditional foodways into everyday life in our communities. How can bringing back our old foodways, or even just a sense of management over our foodways, affect our diets and our health? This is where food sovereignty comes in. Food sovereignty is most commonly defined as the right of peoples and governments to choose the way food is produced and consumed in order to respect livelihoods. The way food sovereignty historically appears in Indigenous communities is through the ways our peoples steward or care for the land, waterways, plants, and animals. Some examples of these stewardship practices in California look like gathering plants and berries at specific stages of growth, only gathering a certain amount of plants during the season, and even the use of cultural burns. Across the United States, Indigenous food sovereignty looks different for every Native community. Click on a seedling below to see the different ways communities are restoring their food systems. When you are finished, click the button in the bottom right-hand corner. Cowlitz's Community Garden in Longview, Washington. The Cowlitz Tribal Health Center in Longview, Washington started a community garden as a part of their diabetes clinic. The garden initially started as a way to provide free fresh produce to patients. It has since evolved into a cultural, community, and educational space and provides regular food distribution to over 300 people in the community. All of the programming is informed by what the community and elders are interested in learning. Some programs the garden now hosts include workshops on gardening, harvesting, food sovereignty, and nutrition. To read more, click the button to the left. If you are finished, click the button to the right to return to the map. Four Corners Potatoes Second Chance, located in the Four Corners region of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. In the Four Corners region of the Southwest, archaeologists, nutritionists, elders, teachers, and others from Hopi, Navajo, Ute, and Zuni communities are working together to revitalize the Four Corners potato. This potato is nutrient-dense, drought-resistant, and was uniquely cultivated in the Four Corners region at least 11,000 years ago. Through DNA sequencing, community gardening, and community education, All of these collaborators are coming together to integrate the potato into Native people's diet. To read more, click the button to the left. If you are done, click the button to the right to return to the map. Reintroducing sturgeon to the Coosa River at Egan-Yi-Folija in central Alabama. The Egan-Yi-Folija community is working to revitalize Muskogee language, values, and agricultural practices. They are also restoring the local environment through food sovereignty practices. Bison used to roam as far south as Alabama and Georgia, but had been killed off before the mid-1800s. In the early 1900s, dams built along the Coosa River also destroyed the local sturgeon population. Through regenerative agricultural practices, this community has brought bison and sturgeon back home to central Alabama. To read more, click the button to the left. If you are finished, click the button on the right to return to the map. Onondaga Seed Savers on the Onondaga Nation. The Onondaga Nation Farm is a 163-acre plot that has been growing food, saving seeds, teaching nutrition and cooking classes, and hosting a free farmers market on Onondaga tribal lands. They also keep bees, chickens, and bison, and frequently forage for nuts, berries, and onions. The highlight of the farm is its seed bank, which has seeds for over 4,000 varieties of corn. The farm has garnered such a vast collection through an intertribal seed trading network. To learn more, click the button on the left. If you are finished, click the button on the right to return to the map. As review for Module 2, we learned that the social determinants of health are the social and environmental factors in our lives that can determine our health outcomes. One of these social determinants of health is access to traditional foodways and foods. Food sovereignty is the right of peoples and governments to choose the way food is produced and consumed in order to respect livelihoods. Food sovereignty looks different across tribal communities, and food sovereignty can be utilized to educate youth about traditional knowledge, prevent and treat diabetes, build intertribal relationships, and restore our traditional ecosystems and connection to land.